February 23rd, 1945, 10:23 in the morning. Iwo Jima. The ground was black. Not dirt, not mud, black volcanic ash, soft enough to swallow boots, sharp enough to cut through gloves, hot in some places from buried explosions, freezing in others where the sea wind cut across the island. Every movement on it was a fight. Corporal Hershel Woody Williams lay face down in that ash, 40 yards from a Japanese pillbox that had already killed 9 Marines in less than 2 hours. He could hear the machine gun inside. Short, disciplined bursts. Not wild firing, not panic. The gunner knew exactly what he was doing. Woody pressed himself lower as another burst snapped overhead, bullets cracking through the air just inches above him. Around him, the ash jumped and spat where rounds struck the ground. In his head, he kept hearing the words his company commander had asked only moments earlier. "Do you think you could do anything with that flamethrower?" Woody was 21 years old, 5'6", 150 pounds. 3 years earlier, the Marine Corps had rejected him for being too short. A recruiting sergeant in Charleston, West Virginia, had measured him, checked the chart, and told him to go home. Now that same Corps was asking him to do what tanks couldn't do, what rifle squads couldn't do, what 3 separate demolition teams had already died trying to do: destroy the bunker. The pillbox ahead of him was not just a hole in the ground, it was a concrete tomb. 4-foot-thick walls, a firing slit barely 8 inches high. Inside, a Japanese Type 92 heavy machine gun had been cutting down Marines all morning. First squad had tried crossing the open ground at 8:30, 4 dead before they covered 20 yards. A second squad tried flanking the position at 9:15, 3 more died. At 9:47, a demolition team tried to crawl close enough to throw satchel charges. 2 more died. 9 Marines, 1 bunker, and behind that bunker there were 6 more. The whole line had been built for mutual protection. 7 pillboxes staggered across the terrain, each one covering the approaches to the others, overlapping fields of fire, reinforced concrete roofs, carefully chosen sight lines. If you attacked one, another could kill you from the side. Captain Donald Beck knew exactly what that meant. His company had been pinned down since dawn. Most of his officers were gone. Most of his squad leaders were dead or wounded. His Marines were exhausted, exposed, and being torn apart in an ash field 660 miles from Tokyo on an island many Americans hadn't even heard of a month earlier. He needed those bunkers destroyed. Without that, his men were going to die right there, and his last option was the smallest flamethrower operator in the battalion. Woody had heard the comments ever since training. Flamethrower men were supposed to be big, broad shoulders, heavy frame, the kind of men who could carry 70 pounds of fuel and pressure tanks while running straight into machine gun fire. The M2 flamethrower weighed about 70 pounds fully loaded. That was nearly half Woody's body weight. Some Marines had laughed when they first saw him assigned to it. "That little guy's going to carry a flamethrower? He'll tip over. Give it to somebody who could actually run with it." Woody never argued. He just picked it up and trained. For 7 months he trained with that weapon. He learned how to fire in short, controlled bursts, 2 seconds, 3 at most. He learned that the useful range was somewhere between 20 and 40 yards, which meant if you wanted to kill the enemy, you had to get close enough for the enemy to kill you first. He learned that the thickened fuel burned at nearly 2,000 degrees. He learned that once it hit a target, it stuck. Walls, sandbags, flesh, it did not matter. And he learned the nickname given to flamethrower operators: 4-second men. That, the veterans said, was about how long you lived once you got within range of a defended position. On Iwo Jima, that estimate was starting to feel accurate. Woody had landed on the island with 6 flamethrower operators under his section. By the 4th day of fighting, 5 of them were already gone, killed or wounded. He was the last one left. Now Captain Beck was staring at him across a shell crater, bullets cracking overhead, asking if the kid from West Virginia could do the impossible. Woody's answer had been simple: "I'll try." Beck told him to take 4 riflemen for covering fire. Woody chose Corporal Warren Bornholtz, Private First Class Charles Fisher, and 2 others. Their job was straightforward in theory and almost hopeless in practice. Keep Japanese heads down long enough for Woody to cross 40 yards of open ground. If they failed, Woody would be the 10th man to die in front of that bunker. Woody checked the flamethrower one last time. 2 fuel tanks, a 3rd pressure cylinder full of compressed nitrogen, 5 ignition charges, 5 chances to light the stream. If the ignition failed, he would be lying 20 yards from a machine gun nest holding nothing but dead weight. He pulled the straps tighter across his shoulders. The harness was built for bigger men. Even after months of adjustment, it still bit into him awkwardly. Then he looked up again at the firing slit in the pillbox. 40 yards of open ash. No real cover, no easy way forward, only the muzzle flashes. Woody lowered himself to the ground and began to crawl.
The covering fire started instantly. Bornholtz fired first, then Fisher, then the other 2 Marines joined in. 4 M1 Garans erupted behind Woody, their sharp reports echoing across the ash field. The rifles barked again and again as the Marines fired as fast as their fingers could pull the triggers. 8 rounds. Ping. Reload. 8 more rounds. Ping. The sudden storm of rifle fire forced the Japanese gunner to duck away from the firing slit. For 2 seconds, the machine gun went silent. Woody moved. He crawled hard, elbows digging into the volcanic ash, dragging the heavy tanks behind him. 10 yards. The ash scraped against the metal fuel cylinders with a grinding sound that seemed impossibly loud in the middle of the battlefield. Then the machine gun roared again. The Type 92 opened up with a violent burst. Bullets snapped past Woody's helmet. One struck the ground inches from his hand. Another smashed into a rock beside him, spraying fragments of volcanic stone across his cheek. He felt something warm running down his jaw. Blood, but he didn't stop. 30 yards. The Japanese gunner had changed tactics now. Instead of spraying wildly, he fired in tight, disciplined bursts, sweeping the gun slowly left and right. The man inside that bunker knew his weapon. The Type 92 fired about 450 rounds a minute. Too much continuous fire would overheat the barrel, so the gunner fired in rhythm. 3-second burst. Pause. 3-second burst. Pause. Woody began counting the pattern in his head. Burst. Pause. Move. Burst. Pause. Move. 25 yards. Another bullet slammed into his left fuel tank. The sound rang through his skull like a hammer hitting steel. For 1 terrible second, he waited for the tank to explode. It didn't. The curved steel had deflected the round. He kept crawling. 20 yards. Now he was inside the effective range of the flamethrower, but he was also inside the machine gun's most deadly range. From this distance, the gunner could put rounds through a 6-inch circle. Woody had to fire before the next burst found him. He pushed himself up onto one knee. The flamethrower wand rose in his hands. He aimed straight at the narrow firing slit. Then he squeezed the trigger. A jet of burning napalm blasted across the open space. The stream looked almost like liquid water as it shot forward. It struck the concrete wall and poured directly through the 8-inch opening. Inside the bunker, the temperature skyrocketed in seconds. Napalm stuck to everything. The weapon, the walls, the men. Woody heard the screams. He held the trigger down for 3 seconds. Then he released it. Silence followed. The machine gun stopped. The bunker was dead. 1 pillbox destroyed, 6 still waiting. Woody dropped flat again as bullets cracked overhead. The second bunker had seen everything. 60 yards to his left, another Japanese gunner had a clear line of fire on his position. Woody rolled sideways, then rolled again, dragging the flamethrower with him. The burning bunker now blocked part of the enemy's view. Smoke poured from the concrete structure, thick, oily smoke that smelled like burning fuel and something far worse. Woody forced himself not to think about it. Instead, he looked back toward the Marine lines. Bornholtz was reloading again. Fisher was firing toward the second bunker, trying to keep its gunner suppressed. The other 2 riflemen were covering the remaining pillboxes farther down the line. 4 Marines holding back an entire defensive system. Woody checked the fuel gauge. Almost empty. Maybe 5 seconds of fuel left. Not enough. He needed another flamethrower. He crawled back toward the Marine position. 80 yards behind the front line, a supply corporal waited with spare flamethrowers. When Woody arrived, he dropped the empty harness into the ash. How many?
the corporal asked. 1. The man stared at him. How many left? 6. The corporal helped him into a fresh set of tacks. 70 pounds settled onto Woody's shoulders again. The straps dug into skin already raw from hours of fighting. The guys are saying you're crazy, the corporal muttered. Woody didn't answer. He simply turned around and started back toward the Japanese line. The second bunker was positioned slightly northeast of the first. The gunner inside had watched everything. He knew what Woody was capable of now. He was ready. A direct approach would be suicide. The other bunkers had overlapping fire lanes that covered the open ground. Woody studied the terrain. There, a shallow drainage channel cut through the volcanic rock, maybe 18 inches deep, just enough to hide a crawling man, not enough to hide the large tanks on his back, but it would have to do. He slid into the channel and began crawling again. 50 yards from the bunker, a rifle cracked somewhere to the right. The bullet whipped past his ear. Another shot hit the rim of the channel, blasting volcanic grit into his face. A third bullet struck his fuel tank. The impact nearly knocked the breath from his lungs. Again, he waited for the fireball that would end everything. Again, it never came. The steel held, but now he was pinned. The sniper covering the bunker had a clear angle into the drainage channel. Woody couldn't move forward. He couldn't retreat without exposing himself. He looked back toward the Marines. They didn't know about the sniper. Woody pulled a white cloth from his pocket, part of a bandage he had stuffed there earlier. He lifted it above the channel and pointed to the right.
Bornholz saw the signal. He shifted his rifle instantly. Fisher followed. 4 Garans turned toward the hidden shooter. The rifle fire from the right stopped. Woody moved. 40 yards. 30 yards. The machine gun inside the bunker opened up again, but the gunner was aiming too high. He expected a running attacker, not a crawling one. 20 yards. Then Woody noticed something strange, a thin wisp of blue smoke drifting from the roof of the bunker. He had seen that before. Ventilation pipe. Japanese pillboxes needed airflow. Every bunker had small steel pipes built into the roof to keep the soldiers inside from suffocating, usually 3 or 4 inches wide, just big enough for a flamethrower nozzle. Woody changed direction. Instead of attacking the firing slit, he crawled around the side of the bunker, out of the gunner's line of sight. He reached the concrete wall and began climbing. The surface was rough volcanic aggregate mixed with cement. Good handholds. He pulled himself onto the roof. Ash crunched under his boots. Near the center he found the pipe, a short steel tube sticking up from the concrete, blue smoke drifting out. He could hear voices inside, Japanese soldiers talking. They had no idea he was above them. Woody lowered the flamethrower nozzle into the pipe. Then he pulled the trigger. Napalm poured down into the bunker from above. The soldiers inside were facing outward, watching the battlefield. They never saw the fire coming. The screams were louder this time, more men inside. Woody held the trigger for 3 seconds. Then he released it. Silence returned. 2 pillboxes destroyed. 5 left. Woody slid down from the roof and landed back in the ash. His legs were trembling now. Adrenaline, exhaustion, and the knowledge that the next bunker would be even harder. But he lifted the flamethrower again and started moving forward. The third pillbox sat higher than the others. It had been built into a natural rise in the volcanic rock, giving the gunner inside a wider view of the battlefield. From there, the Japanese soldiers could watch everything that had just happened. They had seen Woody destroy the first 2 bunkers. They understood his method now. They were waiting. Woody approached slowly, using shell craters for cover. Each crater was a shallow bowl blasted into the ash by artillery and mortar fire. They were the only protection the landscape offered. At 40 yards, he stopped. Something was wrong. The machine gun in the third pillbox wasn't firing. No movement, no muzzle flash, just silence. The Japanese were not making the same mistake twice. Woody studied the terrain carefully. If he were defending this bunker, where would he put an extra rifleman? Where would he position someone to catch an attacker who thought the bunker was empty? His eyes scanned the jagged volcanic ground. Then he saw it. 30 yards to his right. At first it looked like nothing but a shallow depression in the rock, but then he noticed the faint curve of a steel helmet. A Japanese rifleman. The plan was simple. The machine gun would stay silent. An attacking Marine would move forward thinking the bunker was unguarded. Then the rifleman would shoot him from the side. Woody changed direction. He began crawling toward the depression instead of the bunker. The Japanese soldier was watching the front of the pillbox. He never noticed the Marine approaching from his flank. At 15 yards, Woody rose to one knee. He squeezed the trigger. The flamethrower erupted again. The stream of burning napalm hit the depression and rolled over the hidden soldier. The man didn't even have time to scream. The fire consumed the oxygen around him before he could breathe. Woody turned immediately back toward the pillbox. The machine gun burst to life. The gunner had heard the flamethrower. He knew Woody was close. He swept the terrain in front of the bunker with long bursts, trying to hit the Marine before he could close the distance. Woody moved through the smoke from the burning rifleman. The thick black cloud covered his movement. He reached the side of the bunker and climbed onto the roof again. Another ventilation pipe. Another 3-second burst. Inside the bunker, the fire did its work. 3 pillboxes destroyed. Woody climbed down again. He ran back to the Marine line for another flamethrower. The supply corporal barely spoke this time. He just helped Woody strap on another 70-pound tank. Woody turned and walked back into the fire. The 4th and 5th bunkers were positioned together. They had been designed to protect each other. 40 yards apart, each one covering the other with machine gun fire. Any Marine attacking one would be exposed to the other. Woody studied them carefully. There was no safe route, no hidden path, no drainage channel, no smoke cover, only open ground between them. He made a decision. Woody stood up and ran. Both machine guns opened fire instantly. Tracer rounds streaked through the air, red lines cutting across the battlefield. Woody zigzagged as he ran, left, right, left again. The gunners tried to track him, but he kept changing direction. Bullets tore into the ash around his boots. At the midpoint between the bunkers, he dove into a shell crater. The machine guns hammered the crater rim. Both gunners knew exactly where he was now. They waited. Woody stayed perfectly still. 30 seconds passed, then 40. The firing slowed. The gunners were conserving ammunition, waiting for him to move. Suddenly, Woody exploded out of the crater. He sprinted straight toward the 4th pillbox. The gunner in the 5th bunker tried to swing his weapon toward him, but the angle was wrong. Woody was running perpendicular to his field of fire. The gunner in the 4th bunker had the better shot, but Woody was closing the distance too fast. At 15 yards, the gun barrel could no longer depress low enough to hit him. Woody slammed the flamethrower wand directly into the firing slit. He pulled the trigger. 2 seconds of fire filled the bunker. He didn't even wait to see the result. He was already moving, circling behind the burning pillbox. The 5th bunker had a rear tunnel entrance. It connected to the Japanese underground tunnel network that ran beneath the island. If reinforcements came through that tunnel, the fight would start again. Woody aimed the flamethrower into the passage. He held the trigger down for 3 full seconds. Napalm rushed down the passage like liquid fire. Screams echoed from deep underground. Then silence. 5 pillboxes destroyed. Only 1 remained. The 7th bunker was the largest. It served as the command position for that section of the defensive line. 5-foot-thick concrete walls, a narrow firing slit, and soldiers inside who had watched Woody destroy every other bunker in the line. They knew his tactics. They knew his weapon. They were ready. Woody had only 1 flamethrower tank left. Maybe 7 seconds of fuel. 1 chance. He crawled forward through a shallow ravine. Behind him, the covering fire from Bornholtz and Fisher had slowed. They were nearly out of ammunition. The Japanese gunner sensed it. He began firing longer bursts. Bullets struck the ground inches from Woody's hands. 1 round grazed his helmet, ringing his ears. Still, he crawled forward. 25 yards. 20 yards. Woody rose to one knee. The firing slit was directly ahead. He could see the machine gun barrel. He could see the flash of each shot. For a brief moment, the Japanese gunner saw him too. 2 men staring at each other across the battlefield. The gun barrel began to swing toward Woody's chest. Woody pulled the trigger first. The final burst of napalm shot through the slit. It wasn't enough fuel to flood the bunker, but it was enough. The fire reached the ammunition stacked inside. The explosion that followed ripped the roof off the bunker. Concrete fragments blasted into the air. The shockwave knocked Woody backward into the ash. When he looked up again, the bunker was gone. 7 pillboxes destroyed, 4 hours of fighting, 1 Marine. When Woody walked back toward the Marine lines, Captain Beck was waiting. The officer had watched everything through binoculars. "How many?" he asked. 7, Woody replied. Beck nodded. Behind them, far across the island, the American flag had just been raised atop Mount Suribachi. Marines everywhere were cheering. Woody hadn't seen it. He had been lying face down in volcanic ash, crawling toward machine guns. The battle for Iwo Jima would last 5 more weeks. More than 6,800 Americans would die there. But that morning, one small Marine from West Virginia had broken a line that had stopped an entire battalion. Months later, President Harry Truman placed the Medal of Honor around Woody Williams' neck at the White House. But Woody never believed the medal belonged to him, because 2 of the Marines who had provided covering fire that day, Bornholtz and Fisher, never came home. "They made it possible," Woody said years later. "This medal belongs to them." The Marine Corps had once rejected him for being 2 inches too short, yet the same man would become one of the most decorated Marines in American history. Some things, it turns out, cannot be measured in inches.